Hello everyone, this is Pastor Sean, and this is my channel of Death Church Radio Podcast. And for the video for this week, it's going to be my first hour-long Q&A, where I'm going to be sifting through the advice columns, like what I did last week, when instead of doing the traditional U1 question and answer, instead of getting that questions from Facebook and Instagram and different online services that I use, I'm going to be sifting through the advice columns like the video that I did last week and try to see how many people I can help all at once. So I'm going to be answering off of random websites out of the advice forums that I can find, maybe 10 to 20 questions that's going to go over the span for an hour. And once again, this is going to be called December Q&A with Pastor Sean. So thanks for watching. Go ahead and start it now. Okay. First question. How should one approach extreme envy? Well, I would have to know what the intent is behind the question. How to approach extreme envy? Well, envy is a sin. So to pretty much put that bluntly, there's nothing to look at that in a positive light if the person writing that intended to be extremely envious. See, to me, that doesn't make any sense. So it would have to go the other way as to how should one approach extreme envy. You don't want to be envious of anyone. You're supposed to, in this life, you're supposed to go by God's calling and to carve your own path. It's okay to have, actually, I was going to say, like, for people that hold up, like, say, musicians, for example, or sports players, or entertainers, or actors on a high throne, like a high pedestal, in the form of having an idol. But actually, that is also something, I mean, you can be very much inspired by somebody, but it is both not good to be at any kind of level of envious, being that it goes against God's word, but also that it can become dangerous. And well, just looking at this thing I'm reading in this advice forum, how should one approach extreme envy? How I would approach that is you're supposed to approach it by, in a way, deflecting and breaking it down in such a way to be of the counter opposite. I'm not exactly sure what the virtue is as opposed to being envious. I don't know if it's just being joyful in being comfortable in your own skin. Not exactly sure what that would be. I mean, you can definitely look that up on Wikipedia, that there's the 7 deadly sins and then there's the 7 holy virtues. So to not take that as a form of something that you should achieve. So I would definitely not, to basically give you the best answer possible is to only approach extreme envy and being envious of something, to actually do the opposite and look up the holy virtue that's opposed to this and strive to go towards that direction. That's what I would say. Next question. Hi. So basically what the title says. What does the title say? I can't make big decisions How do I know he's the one? I have a history of having a hard time making a big decision. Like when I was 2 years into college, I spent months wondering if this was the good path for me. It was a depressing period, writing pro-contra lists, and then finally... Oh, looked like that turned off. Okay. And then finally not being able to take a big step, which required courage. Instead, I stayed. I have a boyfriend, he's 39 and I'm 28. We have been together for a year and 2 months. We live in different cities, 2 hours by car. He is very ready to move in together with me and start a family, which would require me to move and find a new job. This is giving me all kinds of anxiety. I am ready to give my life up. I have been living here for 10 years. All my friends are here. I love my job. Am I ready to marry him? Is our relationship good enough to upgrade it? Am I ready to be a parent? More often than not, I think no. Our relationship had a rocky path. We had different temperaments. He is more outspoken. I am more peaceful. We argue quite a bit about things. Sometimes he is right. Sometimes I'm right, I guess. I just don't know. I can't decide. And he wants to move in already. I guess I just need to write this down. To move in. Okay. Well, sorry, I thought I heard a ring on my phone. Well, I can actually, for anyone listening to this who's been in this person's or this woman's situation, I actually have been twice. So I can tell you a little bit of the background from my story of my previous ex-girlfriend, where we did live 2 hours apart, and the only time that we saw each other was once every 2 weeks. And this went on throughout the duration of the entirety of 2016, I believe. So I lived 2 hours from her. And so she would come down once a month with her friends, and I would go up once a month, usually. So it can be, how I treated the situation in not really knowing what to do, because you know that your life is going to be changing in a pretty, what could seem like a pretty drastic way. It seems like it's a drastic measure because you're moving everything around. In the question here about, I don't know if it's he wants to move in or she wants to move in together. Okay, so he wants to move in with her and start a family. Well, this person is at that age, 28. I mean, my brother actually was talking about the possibility of having a child with his new girlfriend, and he's around that age bracket. So if you're past the age of about 24, I would say that you're ready to start a family with one child. So be fruitful, multiply. So, however, how I determined this was that because at the time, around this time is when I got fired from Safeway. So when I was working in the produce section, so it gave me a lot of time, thankfully, through my father, where he was helping pay my bills for a pretty substantial amount of time. So I had the chance to go live with her temporarily off and on. So I lived in the city that she lives in for 3 to 4 days at a time, about once a month. And then she would also live with me on the weekends. Or we would both be staying for the weekend at my friend's house, which is about a 25 minute drive from my place. So eventually finding out that we did not click together in person, because it was much, much different when you live so far apart and you think that you're ready to do it. I would say if you're in that situation now, to do a trial run if you're able to. Because I did a trial run with her, being that I was unemployed at the time. and found out that I was unable to make the decision to move in with her and leave my family, my friends. The biggest problem was me leaving my brother and my best friend. Not to say that it probably wouldn't have affected me, because it would have, of my family and all my other friends, but those were the two guys that I knew that if I wasn't around them and not able to talk to them, not just like on a thing on the phone or Instagram or whatever, basically it's my best friend and my brother are kind of the two guys that keep me afloat, I guess I would say, in helping me with things and having a good time and partying and just, just guy things, I guess. But so I found out through living with my ex-girlfriend that it was not going to work out because we were way too different. We had almost nothing in common. It was such a nice and seemed like such a long, beautiful relationship together that was so fun, because I only saw her when we were partying or, stuff like that. So you have to, so every person has a mask that they put on, and you need to be able to see that mask. You need to see the dark side of that person. You need to see the bad part of that person, or the things that are an inconvenience to you, or whatever it is that can be considered like negative. So everybody has two faces. You see, it's like the party face and then the serious face, or how they appear to you when you're in public around other people and whatnot. The weekend version of that person. You got to see the weekday version of that person. You got to see the things that, there was something, I'm not going to name it, but there was something specific that she did that basically ruined the relationship. And it was something that could be seen as very trivial, but it really annoyed me to the point where I just said, after a year of dating, that I had to break it off with her. And I broke up with her because I just knew, and also there was a whole lot of things of politics and religion, and it does say in the Bible, in the New Testament, that a believer cannot mix with an unbeliever for marriage. So it's fine with dating, but basically I didn't want to listen, and I didn't want to hear it at the time, and that even though she's a very nice and pleasant person, it just didn't work. So that's what I would say for this person. You have to have a trial run first. And if you're not able to have a trial run, then unfortunately you would have to break up with that person. Okay, so going on to the next question here in the advice forum. Matched with cute girl on Tinder that turned out to be a transgender. What do I do? So, just like the last question, I've also been in this situation. So, I actually dated, or I was about to date someone 4 years ago that was a man. I didn't know it was a man because this person looked just like a woman. I actually don't even remember what his name is, but I met this person on a dating app at the time, me and my best friend that I was telling you about in the last story. And so found out through Craigslist that this person was I don't know how to pronounce, a transvestite, transgender. So, so basically break this down, for this guy who is dating this person, even though the man, like such as, to give an example, of a person that I watch sometimes online named Blair White, who used to be a boy, but then got sex change surgery to become a woman. Really, the situation that calls is just it's a very daunting and complicated situation. But ultimately, if you are in that situation, just like what I did, I cut it off with that person because the person is a man. So it's not even a thing about culture or anything like this. Everything that I'm telling everybody is based off of, I try to base as much off Jesus and the Bible as possible to help be your moral compass, to help be the sail that tries to lead you in the right direction. That's my intention with putting out these kind of videos. So anything that is not of a man or a woman coming together in marriage is of the devil, just to be completely honest and to be completely straightforward. So if you're a guy dating anyone else that's not a woman, it's breaking God's commandment. So you're going against God in that sense. So by asking, what do? I would say immediately break up with that person, or tell the person, because of your choices in life, I cannot get with you, and just leave it at that. Okay, now moving on to the next question, and this one is rather long. I'm becoming a worse human being every day, and I want to kill myself before it gets worse. So this is going to be a bit of a long one here. I'm 23-year-old male from South Korea. Long story short, I can feel that I'm becoming a less valuable person every day. When I was in elementary school, lots of teachers told my parents that I was probably some kind of genius. Some even suggested me to go to middle school a year earlier. I was also a pretty good piano player and good English speaker compared at that age. Everyone believed me that I'm going to be a great person when I grow up. My grandparents often called me the treasure of the house. I also had no doubt that I was going to be a special person when I become an adult. In middle school, I was a great student. My score was mostly A's, even though I was not called genius anymore, but I certainly was one of the smarter students. In high school, I had quit my piano lessons to concentrate on college admissions tests. It's really a big national event in South Korea. Even flights get delayed or canceled during exam. But I didn't study like a madman like other students. I believed I was smarter than others, so I just studied much less. Instead of studying literally 12 hours a day for years, I just studied bare minimums to keep my grades acceptable. I got final score through, though. I'm sorry, this person's it's a bit difficult to read this by this person's grammar. That's okay. I mean, it looks like this person's first language is not English. I got top 5% score out of 65,000 students and was accepted to chemical engineering major on fairly good college with full scholarship. I chose chemical engineering as major because I could get a high-paying job. That was all. I had no interest on chemistry at all. College life was good. Drinking every day. Get wasted. Don't have to study for 10 hours straight on same desk. Of course, like most of the other students, I barely studied and got bad scores. But I didn't study at all, so it's okay. Surely, if only I study like the rest, I'll get to the top in no time. I'll just enjoy college life in freshman year, then I'll study. In second year, I studied kind of hard. I still got bad scores. I got warning from scholarship department. Everyone said it's okay, you'll get a better score when you come back from the army. Everyone does. So I got conscripted to army and did my 2-year mandatory service and came back to campus with all new determination. I studied hard like rest of students. I still got bad scores, better than before, but not better than others. I lost my scholarship. My parents don't know yet. I studied hard, but I just can't get any better. Every lecture I hear sounds like gibberish at first. I need twice the time to understand same things. I often joke about those kids when I was in school and I became one of them. Okay, about 3 more paragraphs. I was not a genius, or at least not anymore. It's a terrifying thought that I will have to try as hard as I can just to be a normal person. I just can't think of a better future. I completely lost interest and determination on studying anymore. Why bother studying when all you get will be a white-collar job and have no interest at all? I got insomnia. I'm afraid of the future because I know that I won't get any better as time passes. I was a talented piano player, genius, smart kid with big dreams. Now, I'm just a barely functioning college student with bad grades and no goal at all. I'm ready to kill myself before becoming a worse human being. All that preventing me from hanging or jumping is my parents. They trusted me, loved me, and devoted their whole life just to make to the person I dream. If they found me dead, they would be devastated, probably live the rest of their lives blaming themselves. I don't want to do that. I'm just so sorry to my parents that it came to this. I just don't know what to do with my life anymore. Edit. I think I was rambling a bit there with no exact problem to give advice. My problem is that I completely lost where to go in my life. I just don't know what to do. Keep studying things until I eventually like it, or try to find my dreams even if it takes time. How do I even find my dreams? Okay, so it took about 4 minutes to read that, but okay. So for that one, I can actually, I can also feel that I can help with that. So for this one, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, it's a bit to unpack, but basically that's not, I mean, that's, I think that this person is just putting way too much pressure on themselves from what it sounds like at the beginning of the email, or not email, at the beginning of the letter in the advice forum. This person sounds like people in school or whatever, or his friends or family, put a lot of that in his head. And I actually watched a part of a documentary on that in South Korea, where the expectations are ridiculously brutal for you to be a straight A student and to achieve in their society. Being that South Korea is one of the world's superpowers, it does, make a lot of sense. And the same thing, this applies also in Japan, where you don't have a place in society unless you're doing really, really good in school. So, excuse me, said some ginger ale. Okay, so grades are not everything. It's just a part of life. I mean, I was speaking to one of the women that I work with at my current job, and I mean, the reason I got into this job is because of my best friend. I was able to get the job as an anesthesia technician at a surgery center because I knew him without having any previous experience. I mean, I basically was a janitor beforehand. So, I mean, if you're in this situation, I would tell you that it's really not everything. I mean, most of the people that were prophets in the Bible did not even have a regular, what we would consider high school education now. Everybody that lives should have a calling by God to do what it is that they're supposed to be doing, and whatever path that God will lead the person on is whatever it is they're supposed to do. So by understanding that through whatever medium, through prayer, through getting advice from watching videos like this, through the passions that you have. But it sounds like that this person's, when he was a child, his ego was built up into a super ego, and then it was dashed and shattered because now he feels that he is now inferior, just like the kids that he used to make fun of. And the only way out seems like it's suicide, other than the fact that his parents are stopping him because he doesn't want to devastate them. So I'm not sure if this person's going to be hearing this video. I mean, I have no idea. Most likely not. But if you're in that situation when it comes to school, it's not everything. I dropped out of college about 4 or 5 times, just out of frustration. It wasn't, I guess you could say it was a bit of an ego trip kind of thing, because the reason as to why I dropped out the last time I did it, when I was going to community college, because I didn't want to spend that much money, was because the teacher was, it was a class called Religion and Pop Culture, and I was in the third class, I believe. I was there for about 3 weeks, and on the third class, it just kept getting, not taught, well, I had a full school schedule, but I just kept getting frustrated with what she was saying, because it was very liberal and very, she was misquoting, she didn't understand the structure of Christian denominations, which was a part of the, I think it was a homework assignment or something like that. And then she was also, from what I feel, misquoting the Quran and whatnot. It's just, I mean, college campuses and schools, I mean, at least for the West, it's not good at all. But for this person who lives in South Korea, this is what I would tell you. It's not everything, but you can go up to your parents, even if you need to have a friend come with you, or a girlfriend or whatever, come with you, and then tell your parents, even if you sit down, start hysterically crying, it's okay, because it's going to be okay in the end. It's not worth killing yourself over. Just, even if you have to take a break from school for a year to try to figure things out and figure out what it is that you like, because those things can change. I've read a whole bunch of things and had people tell me on different websites who've actually talked to me in the past about, there's no reason for me to live or anything, because I don't have any dreams or aspirations. Those things change. So what you need to start is start a prayer life. And I would actually suggest that you would start going to a church. Doesn't matter which denomination it is, or non-denominational, to get a good footing and to get a good understanding. And even if you have to take a break from school for a year, because it sounds like you want to become a chemical engineer, but there really isn't a point to doing that if the entire purpose is just for you to make money, because that's what I was getting at. The woman that I work with at my job told me that about my friend. Well, he's going to be a millionaire when he's done, because he wants to become a knee replacement surgeon or an ACL replacement surgeon, something like that. Well, I don't know if you can replace the ACL, but like that kind of like a sports surgeon, but on, just regular people. So, yeah, but if the only intention in doing that is just to make money, then in a way you're still wasting your life. So, I mean, just because you don't know what this dream is now doesn't mean it's not going to manifest later. I would say just take a year off, have a brutal conversation that you're going to have with your parents. Have it. Even if you immediately start tearing up and crying, it's okay. It's gonna, these things happen. Even though it's like not a mainstream thing, or it sounds like it's dishonorable if you're a man, it's gonna happen. Have this talk, and then once the talk is over, come to some kind of understanding between you and your parents, and then tell them that you think you need to leave school. Go find maybe a local church to go join, to go there once a week. Start getting fellowship with people over there, and then just start praying and then experiencing life, maybe even outside of South Korea, to go to other places. And then eventually you're going to get a desire for something. So, I mean, that's what happened to me. I mean, I have not had really a desire, any will and want to read everything I could find about psychology and philosophy, from the atheist philosophy to Christian, and to even ones from the Middle East and whatnot, like just on a whole, like linguistics and everything like that, on a huge broad spectrum. But that came about because I found Dr. Jordan Peterson, and even though I've watched every single video he's putting out over the last 6 months, I'm now watching all of Sam Harris's videos. That's something that this was only recently where I started seeing myself and wanting to go to college to become a clinical psychologist, even though I've been a pastor for about, well, God called me to be a pastor back in 2009. It's 2018. So I didn't get the fire to want to write about and read and teach and whatnot in a way of like a psychology or philosophy or sociology. So these like these things can change. So that's what I would suggest for you to do if you're in the situation, because there is a huge problem with suicide and people trying to kill themselves, where it's one of the biggest problems in South Korea from the documentary that I watched on, it was like on YouTube. It's just, it's just a very dark situation, but that's what I would suggest you would do. Going on to the next question here. Okay. He's not my boyfriend, but we have had a sexual relationship / friendship for about a month. He said he thinks, excuse me. He said he thinks I'm normal, not dumb, but not a genius either. It hurt my feelings because I was really, excuse me. I'm just getting over a stomach flu right now. It hurts my feelings because I was really starting to like him. He knew I was offended. He said, I'm sorry it bothers you. He genuinely believes he's smarter than me. Is this arrogant? Should I just let it go? Is he boyfriend material, or will I be signing up as a doormat? So, I don't know. It's just one comment. You can't really tell something like that. The complete intentions of a man when looking into to have a relationship with. But it said at the beginning there in the advice form I was just reading that she only knew this guy for about a month. That is not nearly enough time. You would need to get to know him and to hang out with him, text him, call him, everything like that, for, I would say, at least 6 months. It does seem like a long amount of time, but when you're looking for someone who you think is boyfriend material, it's like what I said earlier in this video. You need to see the person's other face. So it could have just been like a stupid comment, or maybe a comment. I mean, there's a lot of women out there that like it when a man is arrogant. It's like that movie, The Beauty and the Beast. Excuse me. So it's the beauty, the woman, the siren, taming the beast, which is the man. So, or trying to tame the man. It's, a man having arrogance may not necessarily be a bad thing in a relationship, because a lot of women find that attractive. But to beat up that person verbally and to remove their self-worth, that's definitely not good. So don't know if you're signing up to become a doormat or not, because as you've stated, you've only known this guy for a month. I would have actually not even had sex with this. Okay, now I'm just putting the cup of myself into this. Okay, so really what you should be doing is the intention of having to marry this person, to marry the man. So you would need to date him, not have sex, date this man for, let's say, a period of 6 months to really get to know him, because you have to see the good side and you have to see the bad side. Only Christ is perfect. So the man that strives to be like Christ as much as humanly possible to try to become perfect, that's the man that you want to go for. That's the one that you should want. To just say a random comment like that, oh, you're normal, you're not dumb, but you're not a genius either. It's like it's like a kind of sexual fetish or something like that he's trying to raise himself over you. I've also been in that situation way back when I was about 17, 18, up until maybe 21. I've probably done it past 21. I just don't recall doing it, but where I would verbally say things to the woman I was dating, my ex-fiance from about 5 years back then, because we dated off and on for a long time. We're not off and on, pretty much straightforward for 6 years. And at the beginning of the relationship, I would break her down verbally because I got like kind of a high off of it where I felt like I was dominating her. And it says it's a part of the curse from the book of Genesis when before God throws Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, that a part of the curse that we're still under now is the woman is in the relationship, in marriage, the woman is going to try to control the man is going to try to dominate the woman, whatever the means is. So how I would approach your situation is I would say, look, no more sex. I don't want to do that anymore. Don't try to figure out the comments. Just, I would say, let it go. Then date maybe once a week for the next 6 months or so, 4 to 6 months, to see both of his faces and then realize if he's just a jerk or it was just a one-off comment that he thought was funny but misspoke. Or, I mean, because like I was saying earlier, you can have a good kind of arrogance, because I think most men are arrogant at some level. But so that's how I would look at your situation. So you don't rush into things and then, oh, you do become a doormat kind of thing. It's like, oh, well, shoot, like what? And then you're thinking, well, what do I do now? Because I have to break it off with him. So stop having sex, only date. So that's what I would do. Okay, next one. So this one's a bit long. How to fix this. Trying to be as concise as possible. I met this girl online, and because we had mutual connections, I asked around, and a couple of my friends from different circles told me that she is a slut. Okay, also at the same time, I had a FWB, not sure what that means. I go on a beer with her and she was open and sexual, talking about how she had sex in public and similar stuff. So I thought maybe she really is a slut. I lie about how many girls I've been with. I tell her a large number when actually I've only been with a couple. In the next couple of days, we hook up, no sex, but it was amazing. She was crazy. We kissed. She slapped me and grabbed my neck. So I think she really is a, prostitute. Next month was so depressing. She was playing hot cold. I was going mad. I was talking to other girls, having sex with this one, but falling for the girl harder and harder. In the end, while I heard other stories that she is a nice girl, she is just funny and open. She only has sex in relationships and that she is amazing. I fell in love with her. I break up with the FWB. Actually, really quick, I'm going to look that up because I don't know what that means. Let's jump on Urban Dictionary really quick. Oh, friends with benefits. Okay. Well, I mean, that could be in its own video because I don't believe in that. But, okay. Next one. I break up with the FWB and tell her about everything. She says it's okay. We start a relationship. After 11 days, I come clean and tell her about the girl count. She goes mad, tells me I'm allergic to lying, and we break up. I tried to fix this up, but she told me she never makes up with her ex-boyfriends. I go mad, start talking to other girls again, block her on every social media. A mutual friend of ours calls us back to coffee. She says we can be friends, maybe something more later. How do I continue? Okay, well, this one's actually pretty straightforward. I would suggest for you to just break it off with that woman. King Solomon talks about this in the book of Proverbs when it comes to women, that even if it's a rumor that the woman is, I don't want to use the word slut, like fallacious, someone who gets around, it's okay. So your intent as a man is to find a woman that you can bring home to your parents and that you can eventually get married to. So that should be your intent. When it comes to women like this, it's just, even though it's very, it's very arousing and it's very like extreme and exciting. It's talked about in the book of Proverbs that her heels walk all the way to the grave of death. Her heels walk the graveyard. So when she gets you down there, she's going to swallow you whole. And I'm not talking about in a sexual sense. I'm talking about your soul and your worth, your own values and systems within you. So I would say, unfortunately, you would have to cut that off. You got to cut it off with that woman. I'm not sure if you were talking about another woman there in this paragraph, that you met somebody else. But really, I mean, the dating game it's called dating for a reason. You're not in a relationship. When you're dating, you're not just committing to this girl or this guy after a couple of dates. Like, you have to actually verbally say eventually that you would like to become a couple. That's why I believe so much in asking. I'm just kind of that classic guy. I asked for consent and whatnot. I did that on the last date I was on when I drove up to go see the woman I'm speaking to. And it's something that's never going to go right. It's like having a polygamous relationship. Or polyamorous. Really anything that I was speaking of earlier that's not of a man or a woman getting together for perfect harmony. With this one, you're just going to have nothing but trouble with it. Even though it might, if you're in this situation, it might hurt, and it might hurt a lot to hear me say that, because once again, I've been in this situation with a woman who was completely out of her mind, but it was so sexy to me. Just having that problem of feeling like, it's not a syndrome, I'm not sure like what it's called, but just being self-destructive, like in a romantic sense. It's something that I actually have struggled with up until I would say maybe recently, but it's not really something that's on my mind all that much anymore. But it's not something that I need to bring to the altar of God to have it squashed. But in essence, this woman is bad news. So I would suggest to just stay away from her. Don't meet with her for coffee. Don't continue talking to her. You already blocked her on all social media. Just keep it like that, because as time goes on, you'll eventually just forget about her. Or if you didn't forget about her, it'll eventually fall off, because it's just completely illogical to go after somebody like that and expect to have like a long-term relationship. It's just not a good idea. So that's what I would say about that. Okay, the next one. How do I get a guy to understand I'm too broke to see him? Well, personally, that wouldn't offend me, but okay. So I'm going to read this and then cut it off and then turn it back on for the last part of this video, but I still have a minute before I have to cut this off. Okay. So the next one on here says, I'm sure it's very easy to say, hey, I'm broke to hang, but I'm like 0.30 in the bank broke, like 30 cents, like she owes money to the bank. So to start off, me and him have been talking through text for months, and not too long ago we met up to see a concert together, and I had so much fun with him. We kept talking about meeting each other again, and I really want to. The thing is, I'm so broke, I'm saving all my gas just to get to work, because it's basically investing my time, gas, and money into getting more money back. Okay, sorry about that. Continuing. Today he really wants to see me, but I have no money and I don't want to explain how broke I am to him right now. And I don't want to come off like, if you really want to see me, you have to pay for everything, because that's not fair to him. And I like him so much, but that seems like the only way. Honestly, what do I do? Honestly, it wouldn't bother me personally if you're broke, because, wow, I can't believe I've personally related to like almost everything I've read here. I've been in that situation several times where I was the one that was broke. Probably being that I've probably had more unemployed time since 2006 than I've been employed. But so personally, it wouldn't really bother me. And also being a man, to be the gentleman and pay for everything for the woman is just, it's chivalry. It's living by a code of conduct. So if that was me personally and you told me, hey, I'm broke, my bank account's in the negative, but I would really like to see you, I would pull some strings and I would just say, okay, let me drive down to you and see you. You know, I'll pay for lunch or dinner. I'll pay for drinks, whatever it is that you would like to do, as long as it's not too ridiculous. Like, where you're not like, I mean, because it's definitely not something that sounds like you're trying to steal money from this guy. It sounds like that you're a pretty, from what I read in this paragraph, that you're sounds like a pretty genuine person, and you genuinely feel bad about the fact that you don't have any money. So I would just tell him, hey, look, I'm broke, but would you like to see me anyways? Eventually, if it became a habit over time, then it would be an idea to have well, this is if you're boyfriend, girlfriend already, or husband, wife, you would have to have a sit down, possibly with a marriage counselor or whatever, to, well, if it was like a bad habit, really, that's where I'm getting at. If the person literally is paying for everything and you're not paying for anything, but it doesn't sound like that in this advice forum here. So that's what I would do and see what he says, yes or no. And if he says no, or I can't, or I'm broke too, then you can tell him, well, this is when I get my next paycheck on this date. Would you like to go on a date then, or the weekend of, when we both have time, but I'll have money? So it's just be open about it. I mean, I personally would not be offended. So I would assume a lot of guys wouldn't, but I mean, I don't know. I can only speak for myself. So yeah, that's what I would do. Okay, next one here. Okay, so this one's a long one. This might be actually the last one for the video, but we'll see. So there's going to be one or two more. Okay. My mother is what you would call a low-key racist. She's a nice white lady who grew up in the blue-collar Midwest. She's outwardly polite and friendly to people of all different backgrounds, but occasionally she'll say something that really reveals how little she thinks of people of color. I didn't notice this much when I was younger, but now that I am an adult and living several states away from her, I do notice and I do try to speak up to express my disapproval. When I visited my parents' place last year, I noticed some racist decorations in their home. My mother decorated the house in a very retro 1950s style, so I believe she picked up these pieces on eBay or at local antique shops because she thought they would work to the retro look she was going for. I'm quite sure she wouldn't characterize these items as racist. She tends to be ignorant about these things, but I don't think it matters much as to why she bought them. While I was visiting last year, I decided to not say anything to her because I didn't want to start an argument while I was staying in her home. My mother is very defensive. She doesn't take criticism well at all. But now my husband and I are thinking about booking plane tickets to visit family again in a few months. If I am to stay with my parents again, I feel I have to talk to her about this. I'm thinking about telling her that while I'm sure she bought these decorations because she thought they looked nice, that doesn't change the fact that they are racist, and I would like her to remove them, ideally get rid of them altogether before I come visit again. And if she refuses to do that, well, then I'm considering whether I should refuse to stay at her house at all. Last paragraph. Does this seem like a reasonable course of action? I hope she will agree to get rid of the items, even if she does just to appease me. But I'm not expecting this conversation to go over well. I want to do the right thing. I don't want to pretend like I'm not horrified or offended every time I see the racist imagery in her house, but I also love my mother and I don't want to overreact or create more damage in our relationship than is necessary. Okay. So with this, I believe that you talking to the person who wrote this, not about the mother, but the daughter, I would say to not say anything, to just go ahead and go over to your mother's house with your husband. I don't know if anybody listening was ever in this situation with a person being low-key racist. I mean, it's just, you would have to understand that when talking about like an elderly person, talking about an elder, that a lot of them are people that grew up in eras back in, let's say, the 30s up until the 60s, 70s, where it was socially acceptable to, or even, I mean, it's not even that. I mean, I don't know because I don't know who these people are, like, but I mean, what I personally believe is that if you want to say things that can be considered racist to people that you know personally, because this comes up at work a lot for me. This is just how they talk. I'm talking about the guys. They've said a lot of racist things about me, but it was in like we have that love together where it's like working on a construction site or something. It's just, it's comical. I've made fun of my own race, the race of the guys that I'm hanging out with, the race of the women I'm hanging out with at work. It's just who you know kind of thing. If you really feel uncomfortable with the fact that your mother has imagery of that can be considered racist in her house, that the best course of action would just to buy the plane tickets and then stay in a motel instead, or a hotel, because it kind of just fixes the problem. There's no need to talk to her about that, because there is a story from the Bible that does come up that I can talk to you about, because if you're just doing it as a joke and it's comical, then I find that I personally don't get offended. I find that okay. That's fine. If you're doing it and the intent is hate because you genuinely think you're better than other races, then I would suggest for you to get counseling and find a good solid Christian therapist to see on a week to semi-weekly basis. Jesus talked about at the end of book of John, it's one of the Gospels, before he ascends into heaven after he gets crucified and rises in 3 days, he talks about them to make disciples of all nations. So that the gift for everyone, the purpose for the Holy Spirit is for everyone to have it. He loves everybody. It's just with different races and groups of people, it's just a thing where God just had the intent when making all his pots and him being the potter that the pots were white or black or light brown or dark brown or whatever in the skin, differences in the skin pigment and how the person looks, man or male or female. It's supposed to be like a beautiful thing for it's something for you to be proud of whatever skin color you are. But if I was in your situation, I would just say, hey, we're going to go ahead and just book a motel or a hotel, but we'll come over, but just don't bring it up, being that it's just going to cause arguments and fights, because she is still the master of her own home, despite whether she thinks that the decorations or artworks are racist or not racist. So that's how I would treat the situation. Just don't even make a big deal out of it. So even though, like what I just said, like quoting the Bible, it's just, you have to understand, like, because this is such a big problem here in the States, like it's such a big problem with all the different kinds of things of cultural this and, of politics here and like all the kinds of differences. And that I just read today about the Cowboys and Indians things with Kevin Hart, because he threw a party for his kid, and also the show Friends, that it doesn't promote body positivity, and it's stuff like it's fat shaming. It could be considered misogynistic. It's sexist. Like, it's just, I find all that stuff just deplorable, because I feel it's just making more of a divide and making people, you're essentially making people into robots. But at the same time, if something's genuinely racist, I'm going way too deep into this. So that's what I would do. Just book the hotel and don't bring it up. That's how I would treat the situation. So, next one here. And this is going to be the last question. Okay. Hello. I'm a super autistic guy that can't follow directions well, can't multitask or talk to a lot of people. I was wondering, what are some good certifications I can get to get out of minimum wage? I'm good at cleaning, giving massages, and cashiering. I have failed at many other things, and I was looking into massage therapy or CNA. Any advice? An autistic person. I can't think of any on the top of my head, but it's just, I don't know about nowadays, but it's kind of like society sees that as an affliction. This person wants to get out of those basic jobs, but at the same time, it's just people that are mentally handicapped there's just not much in society, like what Dr. Jordan Peterson said in one of his videos about the person with a IQ of lower than 85 points. There's just not really anything out there. They're purposely set as homebound, just to stay at home and be cared for, as opposed to working in society. But obviously this person wrote this, so what I would say for this person is go ahead and try the massage certifications, because it's only about 2 years of school, and try to do that. But being that if you're autistic and have these problems, it's just going through life with this handicap. It's just, I would also say to also apply for jobs at churches, like local churches around you, to apply for a job. Well, I guess the point of the message here is to get out of doing basic jobs. Okay, so I would say to do that, or you could even try to become a, if you're to actually try to become a pastor, and you can go to school to get a divinity degree in that, and that's 6 to 8 years to become a pastor of a church. So I would also suggest that too. If the massage thing is also a good idea. I maybe operating a forklift, or becoming a truck driver. I'm not exactly sure what it is that you could do that would make a lot of money if that's what you want to do. But so that's what I would suggest. Go ahead and go for whatever it is that you already suggested. But I would also suggest in going to school to become a pastor for a Christian church. So that's going to be it for the video for today. Thanks for watching, guys. This is Pastor Sean. I upload a new video every Sunday. I hope that some of the questions that I went over helped you in any way if you were in those situations, to be able to get out of them, or to help steer and sail your way out of those situations. So thank you once again, and God bless.